Imagine trying to write a novel, right? But every time you misplace a single comma, the entire book just instantly catches on fire.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Right. It's a stressful way to work. But I mean, that is basically what traditional software development has felt like for decades. Welcome to the deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Whether you are, prepping to build your very first startup or you're just intensely curious about the future of tech and where things are heading, we have a clear mission today. We are unpacking a stack of notes on a tool called Cursor AI.
Which is just taking over right now.
Exactly. It has quietly become the fastest growing AI coding assistant in the world.
Yeah.
And we are going to look at how it is fundamentally rewriting the rules of how software is built.
Yeah, because we are really looking at a massive paradigm shift here in how human intent is translated into working technology. It essentially changes the entire friction point of creation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really get why this tool is pulling developers away from environments they've, used for years, we have to look at the baseline.
Right, how things used to be.
Yeah, we have to look at how coding normally works. Traditionally, writing software is a bit like trying to build a house by constantly running to the library to read up on hammer techniques.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. You write a sentence, you hit a roadblock, you stop what you're doing, you search a forum for the grammatical rule, you try it. It fails, you search again. It is incredibly disjointed.
And very frustrating.
Absolutely. Cursor AI, on the other hand, is like having an expert master builder standing right inside the house with you. They're handing you the tools and doing all the heavy lifting.
What's fascinating here is the architectural approach Cursor actually took to solve this problem. Because they didn't just build a smart chatbot and, bolt it onto the side of an existing process.
Which is what a lot of the early AI tools did, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it always felt really clunky. Instead, Cursor integrated the artificial intelligence directly into the actual coding environment itself. It's a completely ground-up rebuild of the workspace.
Wow.
Yeah, it transforms the workflow from what has historically been a very solitary trial and error struggle into this incredibly fluid, real-time collaboration between a human and a machine.
Okay, so to really understand the hype around this, we have to look at what happens when you actually open this tool up on your computer.
Right, the user experience.
Yeah, because if you just glance at the screen, Cursor looks incredibly unassuming. It looks exactly like a normal standard coding environment.
It's very familiar territory.
Exactly. You have your dark background, the brightly colored lines of text, the file folders neatly organized on the left side. It looks like the same software developers have been staring at for like 10 years.
But under the hood, it's a completely different story.
Right. Underneath that very familiar surface, there is an entirely different engine running. It has these powerful AI capabilities ready to assist in real time.
And that familiarity is a very deliberate design choice, by the way. You don't want to force developers to learn a brand new interface while also learning to work with AI.
Yeah, that makes sense. So instead of searching online for answers, developers literally just ask Cursor using natural language. You can generate code, explain code, refactor things, debug errors, or create entirely new features.
It is wild to see in action.
It really is. Like, you can literally highlight a block of messy code and just type, explain what this does, or optimize this function, or even build a logging system for this application.
And that command alone, that explain what this does, feature, it completely flips the traditional learning model on its head. You aren't just typing out exact syntax and, crossing your fingers hoping it works.
Right.
You're having a continuous conversation with the workspace itself.
Wait, let me push back here for a second, because this all sounds a little like magic, and I know software development is the opposite of magic.
Fair point, yeah.
Coding is incredibly precise, right? As we established, you miss a semicolon, or you capitalize a letter that shouldn't be capitalized, and the entire server crashes.
Oh, absolutely. It's unforgiving.
Exactly. And natural language English, for example, is notoriously ambiguous and messy. So normally, coding requires learning a highly specific machine syntax. But here, I can literally just type, build a login system in plain English.
Yes, you really can.
It sounds like we are moving from being the line cook chopping the onions to being the restaurant manager shouting out orders. But how on earth does the AI know what database I'm using or what specific security protocols my app requires?
That is the exact right question to ask.
Yeah.
Because that ambiguity is the massive wall that earlier AI models kept crashing into.
Okay, so how do they get around it?
Well, If you ask a generic AI to build a login page, it'll give you a generic login page. It'll guess your database, it'll guess your security, and when you try to plug it in, it breaks completely.
Right, because it doesn't know your specific setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it works here because it bridges the gap between having an idea and executing it, turning natural language into the ultimate programming command. The reason Cursor can handle the ambiguity is because it doesn't have to guess.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the solution to that ambiguity problem is a concept called context awareness, right?
Yes, that is the
Right.
magic phrase, context awareness.
And this is the core reason why developers are abandoning their old tools, because being a manager only works if the AI actually understands the restaurant.
Exactly. Context awareness is the entire ballgame here.
Yeah.
Without it, an AI coding assistant is just a fancy search engine. But with it, it becomes an actual engineer.
Let's break down why this is such a leap forward. Because before a tool like this, if you wanted to use an AI chatbot to help fix a bug, you had to deal with the most frustrating, mind-numbing process.
Oh, the copy-pasting nightmare.
Yes, you'd have to find the broken code, copy it, open a separate browser window for your chatbot, paste it in. But then you realize the chatbot doesn't know what variables you set up in another file.
Right, so you go back.
Yeah, you go back, copy that second file, paste it into the chatbot, write a huge paragraph explaining how they connect. You get a suggestion, paste it back, and half the time it fails because you forgot a third file the AI needed.
It's exhausting just talking about it.
It really is. But unlike standard AI chatbots, Cursor actually understands your specific project structure. It looks across multiple files to provide suggestions based on the actual code base. It is already living inside your files.
It is essentially reading the room.
Right. It doesn't need you to copy and paste anything.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the mechanics of how it actually reads the room. Because you can't just feed an entire massive enterprise software project into an AI's active memory all at once.
Right, it would just crash.
Exactly. It would overwhelm the system's short-term memory. So Cursor doesn't just read your files. It creates a mathematical map of your entire project locally. It indexes your code base.
A mathematical map. Okay, walk me through how that actually works in practice.
Sure. So when you open a project, the system scans through all your folders, all your thousands of lines of code, and it creates these things called embedding vectors.
Embedding vectors. Got it.
Yeah, think of it as creating a highly detailed cross-reference index of a massive encyclopedia. So when you type that ambiguous command like build a login page, the AI doesn't just look at the blank screen in front of you.
Oh, it queries that index.
Exactly. It queries that mathematical index.
Yeah.
It instantly finds the file where your database connections are stored. It finds the file where your visual design theme is defined.
Wow.
It pulls only the necessary relevant pieces of context into its active memory, and then it generates the code.
So it provides hyper-specific solutions built perfectly for your exact software architecture. That makes the assistants vastly more relevant and practical.
Exactly. It elevates the AI from a generic encyclopedia to a highly personalized assistant that knows your unique software.
It's the difference between asking a stranger on the street for directions versus asking someone who actually helped build a city grid.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And that leads to productivity gains that are honestly difficult to overstate. There's a well-known reality in software development programmers spend about 80% of their time reading and trying to understand code.
Wait, 80%?
Yeah, 80%.
Yeah.
And only about 20% actually writing new code. When you join a new project, you spend weeks just trying to understand how all the different files talk to each other.
Wow, so the friction isn't the typing. The friction is the comprehension.
Precisely. The friction is holding this massive, fragile mental model of the software in your head. But context-aware AI flips that 80-20 ratio completely.
Because the AI has already mapped the code base.
Exactly. You can point to a function and say, where does this data come from? And the AI instantly traces it back for 5 different files and just explains it to you. It does all the heavy lifting.
Freeing the human to focus entirely on logic and creation, which is incredible. But that brings up a really interesting point, because if the AI understands the whole project, and it's doing the heavy lifting of mapping everything out, it fundamentally changes the identity of the developer, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. It is a massive shift toward AI-assisted software development.
Right. You are no longer this solo operator hacking away in a dark room. You are a collaborator.
Yeah, we are moving from micro-execution to macro-orchestration. The developer is transitioning from being the line cook who is meticulously chopping the onions to being the restaurant manager who is designing the menu and coordinating the kitchen.
It is like you suddenly have this extremely versatile, highly caffeinated coworker who just never sleeps. And depending on what you need in that exact second, the AI takes on completely different roles.
Exactly. Sometimes it acts as a tutor, explaining complex logic. Other times it's a reviewer, quietly scanning your work to flag security vulnerabilities.
Right. Or a debugging assistant when the app crashes. And obviously a collaborator that is actually writing lines of code alongside you.
And because this tool is highly versatile and dynamic, we are seeing adoption across a surprisingly wide spectrum of users. It's not just seasoned pros.
Yeah, let's talk about who is actually using this. Because professional developers are obviously using it to speed up their workflow, but startup founders are using it to build their products in a fraction of the time.
Freelancers and indie hackers are taking on much larger projects too.
Exactly. And crucially, we are seeing massive adoption by students learning programming and people who are total beginners.
The beginner aspect might be the most disruptive part of this whole phenomenon. Historically, the learning curve for programming is notoriously steep, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let me bring the listener into this because I think a lot of people can relate to this specific pain point. If you are a listener who has ever decided, I'm going to learn Python or I'm going to build an app, you probably watched a tutorial, got really excited, and then quit after 3 days.
I've been there myself, honestly.
Right. And you didn't quit because the high-level concepts were too hard. You quit because setting up the environment was a nightmare, or your code wouldn't compile due to a single missing bracket.
Staring at a screen for 6 hours trying to find one typo.
Exactly. So what does this all mean for the learning curve? If I'm a student or a beginner, is relying on an AI to catch my typos a crutch? Or is it like having a senior developer looking over my shoulder 24/7?
It is absolutely not a crutch. It's the latter. It accelerates learning. Because when you are learning any complex skill, the most valuable thing you can possibly have is a tight, immediate, context-aware feedback loop.
Which you just didn't get before.
No, under the old model, the feedback loop was brutal. You make a mistake, the machine simply says error, and you're left completely alone to figure out why. It's just a wall of frustration.
But with a context-aware assistant, the AI doesn't just fix the missing bracket. It can actually explain the concept of why that bracket is necessary in that specific function.
Exactly. You are learning by doing, but with a safety net that actively educates you.
That command we mentioned earlier, explain what this does, is an absolute game changer for someone trying to reverse engineer software. You don't have to blindly trust the code, you can interrogate it.
And on the other end of the spectrum, consider what this does for a solo startup founder or an indie hacker. It dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for building complex digital products.
Because they can do the work of a much larger team.
Exactly. Historically, if you had a great idea but only knew front-end design, you had to hire a database expert, a security expert, a back-end engineer. Now, that solo founder can operate as the manager.
They design the architecture, make the high-level decisions, and rely on the AI for the granular coding duties. It is a massive multiplier of human capability.
Which brings us to the ultimate question regarding the future of the industry, if you think about it.
Yeah. If everyone from a day one beginner who previously quit after 3 days to a seasoned professional is suddenly working this much faster and more collaboratively, where does this actually lead?
Well, the trajectory we are on makes one thing very clear. The question is no longer whether AI will influence software development. We have completely moved past that debate.
Right.
The only question now is how much. How much of the workload will be automated, and how fast will this transition happen?
Because coding is becoming radically faster. It's more collaborative and, crucially, wildly more accessible. People with brilliant product ideas don't have to memorize exact machine syntax anymore.
But it is also vital to understand what isn't changing. Developers are not going to disappear.
The doomsday narrative of AI replacing engineers is a bit overblown.
Completely overblown. It fundamentally misunderstands software development. Software isn't just about typing lines of code. It is about solving human problems.
Right, deciding what to build and why it matters. That remains entirely in the human domain.
Exactly. The way developers work is changing dramatically, not ending. They'll spend significantly less time on repetitive, boilerplate code and more time architecting elegant solutions.
Yeah, the AI might be the ultimate line cook, but it doesn't know what menu the neighborhood actually wants to eat.
That's a perfect way to look at it. The job is elevating.
It is an evolution of the craft. And whether you are a pro whose livelihood depends on staying ahead, or you're a beginner Cursor AI is a tool worth watching. It is one of the clearest examples we have of this massive technological revolution functioning in the real world right now.
It absolutely is. It proves the immediate future isn't human versus machine. It is a deeply integrated partnership.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to chew on, something that stretches beyond just the mechanics of this one specific tool.
It's a big shift to think about.
It really is. We spent a lot of time today talking about how this technology is making software development more accessible by allowing us to use natural language plain English to command the machine and bypass the strict, unforgiving syntax of traditional code.
Right, becoming the manager.
Exactly. So if tools like Cursor are making it so that anyone can build functional, complex software simply by talking to an AI and refining their intent, will the definition of tech literacy in the future undergo a massive shift?
That is the defining question for the next generation of builders, I think.
Will we move away from a world where being technical means knowing how to write code and instead enter a world where tech literacy is entirely defined by how clearly, precisely, and creatively you can communicate your ideas?
It really makes you wonder.
It certainly does. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep exploring the tool shaping our world, and we will catch you next time.